have any guy here who started a shul here?
Look.
I should ask the question after the recording starts.
No? Okay, first of all, class is sponsored by Avram Maradian for all good things. Okay, when Likkutei Parshat today, page Yudches, second column, like 10 lines into the page, on second column. Okay, the Alter Rebbe is bringing down the pasuk, Re'ei anechi neisen lefnechem hayom. When it says hayom, it means eternally. And he says, what does lefnechem mean? It should have said lochem. So the Alter Rebbe is explaining that a Matan Torah, every Jew there's a premise in the chitzenius. There's the internal level, external level. A Matan Torah, whenever Hashem said anechi Hashem elokecha, Hashem revealed into everybody the level of anechi, which is the essence of Hashem, which allowed the Havaya, infinite, to become your nature. Okay? And he says, then he starts going into the difference between Chochmah and Bina. So Chochmah is Bittul, Bina is understanding. And he says they're inseparable friends. That means you need both. You need what's called Nasiv and Ishma. You need Bittul of Chochmah and the broadening of Bina. And he says like this, because if the person doesn't have this level of Chochmah, this level of Bittul, even if you meditate into the greatness of Hashem in a very broad sense, and you'll create a love and a fear of Hashem, it won't last. And it'll come, not only that, it'll come to negativity. In other words, without bittul, seichel itself is very, very dangerous. Because seichel, in Yiddish there's an expression, it could lead you astray in an unbelievable way. They call them maskilim, you know that. So, the Alter Rebbe says you must have the level of bittul before his baininess. Because if you have his baininess meditation without bittul, it can lead you astray. It's not going to last. Because Chochmah gives life to the owner, meaning Bal Targum Bal Mora. V'ribein Hainu. Afil mi sheyesh bechinas memshola. Halohadem bechinazu. That even if somebody has jurisdiction and control over this meditation, his bain is b'gdulas Hashem. B'achav v'emek yesh lo mayir asera al b'chinas bittul shem'chinas chochmah now. Okay? So he says, again, each one has its advantage. There's an advantage of Bina, which is the understanding, okay? And there's an advantage of understanding over Bittul. Because when you understand it, then you internalize it. Bittul is not internalized, because there's nothing to internalize to, because you're completely bottled. And skip the parentheses, because no mind can possibly grasp Hashem. Only a slight level of godliness from the level of Chochmah. But by meditation, you have the understanding of Hashem. Let's read it and I'll explain it. If without the bittul you don't have the isbaininess, and okay. So he says like this: a person needs to have both levels of chokhmah and bina. Okay. By the way, this is what we mentioned last night. That last week's parsha was Ekev Tishma'un, Shmiya. Understanding. Today's parsha is the Re'ei anechi neisen lefnechem. Re'iyah. The difference between Shmiya and Re'iyah is the difference between Chochmah and Bina. Bina is understanding. You understand. Seeing, Re'iyah, seeing is believing. Why? Because if I understand something, you can prove to me that I don't. I say, oh, I understand it very well. You can start asking me questions and prove to me that I don't begin to understand it. But if I see it, there's no way you can bring me a million proofs, it's not going to do anything. Re'iyah, therefore in English there's this concept, Re'iyah therefore there's always the expression, Re'iyah sa-chochma. Chochma is the level of Re'iyah. When you see something, you take a look at something, before you start analyzing it, like you see a beautiful picture, right? A piece of art. You look at it, you take everything in, but you have to understand, you didn't break it into details yet. That's the level of Re'iyah. What?
That makes seichel higher than bittul. That is,
No,
Re'iyah is more.
Re'iyah is the bittul of Chachma. Shmiya is the level of Bina. Yeah, Shmiya is understanding. That's Bina. Re is a higher level than, and therefore, over there, V'haya Ekev Tishmun, here it says, Re Anechi Neisin Lefnechem Hayim. It's a much deeper level of Re'iyah, to see Elokus.
And with Chachma you see it's better than Bina?
You see it, but you don't understand it. It's a level of Bittul.
Because it's Bittul.
Correct.
But it's ironic that seeing.
There's no yeshus in seeing. There's yeshus in understanding.
I mean,
When you see something, it doesn't make you ego, yeshus. Understand something, oh, I understand it. Yeshut. Being a yesh, ego.
Seichel without.
So the Alter Rebbe is saying here that you need to have Chachma and Bina. That's why, like we said, Chachma and Bina is Nasiv and Ishma. You must have both. That's why by Matan Torah, Nishma was not enough, and Nas itself is not enough. You have to have both levels together. Oh. Okay, in base. Ubechin is Vav Shel Shem Havaya. See, he says like this. The Alter Rebbe is explaining Yud Kei of Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? So Yud is the level of Chachma, Hey is the level of Bina, like he said. So now he's going to the Vav of Yud Kei Vav Kei. What is the Vav Shel Shem Havaya? Is Bechinas Nachal Eisen. The Nachal of Eisen, Shebechinas Eisen and now. Like we said before, Eisen is strength. From the level of the Ayed and Bechinas Nachal. Bechinas Hamshach Lamata Lamakam Midas Shebelev. What is the inyan of Vav? We learned already many times. Vav is a letter just straight from top to bottom. Meaning, Vav represents bringing down whatever level you have from the highest levels to the lowest levels. So first you have Yud Kei, which is Bittul, Chachma, and Bina. And then you have Vav, which is the Hamshach, bringing down this Bittul and understanding into a level of Midas. Because Vav is 6 to 6 Midas. V'ub'chin is Vav, and that's the Shenachlak Lel Sheish. The Midas are basically divided into 6. V'ub'chin is Vav, La'afchim L'Kedusha. Because the Vav is to transform them from Midas of Klipa, because we are trying to elevate the Nefesh Abamis, is Midas. Right? The whole Aveda is not with the Nefesh Lakis. The whole Aveda Nefesh Lakis is good, it doesn't need Aveda. Aveda is with the Nefesh Abamis. Ultimately, to come La'avas Hashem Elokeichem. That the Midas should love and fear Hashem. Then it comes to the last Hey of Hashem's name, which is Malchus. But here the Alter Rebbe says, that's Machshava Dibur Amaisa, which Keneged Gimel Kavim Shebehei Achreina. Yeah, but he's saying it just the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud is Bittul, Chachma. Hey is Bina, understanding. Vav is bringing it down into the 6 meters. And then it's not enough to have it, you love Hashem, you tell your spouse, I love you very much in my heart, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to think about you, speak about you, and do something for you. But I love you in my heart, you know what I mean? So, the Elokus, the level of Chacham and Bina has to come down into Machshav Dibur Maisa. And that's the Hey. The Hey has 3 lines. Unlike the Ches, that the 3rd line is connected to the top, meaning There's no break between Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. That's why Ches is Chometz, which is Klipa. But Hey is Matzah, that's the level of Kedusha, because Af HaSisiv, there's a break between Bria, Yitzira, Machshava, and Dibur, and the level of Asiyah, of action. But Hey is Malchus. So he says that's the level of Torah Shebal Peh. Malchus Korinala, which is called Malchus, the Godel Talmud Shemevili de Maisa. Okay? It's interesting. The Gemara says, Man Malke Rabbanan. Who are kings? The Chachamim. It's a famous Gemara, so that's what he brings down. Man Malke, who are the kings? The Rabbanan, the Chacham that learn Torah. Malchus, and the Chachamim of Torah, that's Torah Shebal Peh. Right? Torah Shebiksav is not the Chachamim. Torah Shebiksav is what says in Tanakh. The Rabbanan, that's Torah Shebal Peh. Therefore, Man Malke Rabbanan, who is the level of Malchus Rabbanim the Chachamim, because that's the level of Malchus Shebal Peh, Korinun Lo. Malchus is the level of Torah Shebal Peh, and that's the level of Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. Okay, you have to skip the parentheses. What? Correct. That's what the Chassidus explains. Torah Shebal Peh is greater than Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh basically is Chochmah and Bina. If you think about it, Torah Shebiksav says, don't do Melacha on Shabbos. It's a Nukudah. It's not a whole explanation. Yeah? Torah says, don't do Melacha on Shabbos. Then you got a whole Gemara with a massive Shulchan Aruch, whatever, explaining what does that mean. That's taking the level of Chochmah and expounding on it. That's what Torah Shebal Peh is. Right? So Torah Shebal Peh is the level of Chochmah, just, and the Torah Shebal Peh, a Medrash explains it. Pasuk says, in the beginning Hashem created heaven and earth. Very nice. That's a nice point. But then you have millions of midrashim on it. Or Torah Shebal Peh, explaining the pasuk.
The people who Pasuk Shalom say that the Baal Peh, some rabbi sat down
And they were bored, yeah.
so that's actually higher than Shmata.
Correct. One second, where does this thing finish? Because he says Malchus is Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebal Peh is basically the Chachamim's expounding of Torah Shebal Peh. That's Bina relative to Torah Shebiksav, which is Chachma. Oh, okay, found where the parentheses end. All the way down, 10 lines from the end of this paragraph. Ve'inyin bechinas elu. And the inyan of these inyanim of Chachma, Bina, the 6 meters, and Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa, Nemazim b'shem Havaya. That's the level of Kabbalah Satera B'diba Neichi Havaya Lokecha, that the Neichi Havaya Lokecha. And he said, V'zeh Shomer Hazal, this is what the Gemara says, Uba B'beten Imei, the Gemara says, when a baby is still within the mother, Ner Dalak Al Reishei, there's a candle over his, on top of his head. U'malam D'meisei Kol HaTeira Kula. And he's taught the whole Torah. Right? That's the Gemara we know. The baby is taught. But the Gemara adds to that. The Gemara says, next time you teach him the whole Torah. There's a candle lit on the head of the child. Al Reishi, on top of the head. Now obviously there's no candle in the mother's stomach. She would burn. So what does it mean? He says, Ner Daluk is the level of Yud Sheb'Shem Havaya. Ner is a flame. A flame is Chachma. Umeland and they say kol ha-Torah kula is hey achreinu shebeshem leimelach shekol inyan mebchinas elu of shem havaya miyud ad hey meland and they say kedelias achi leidase v'tzei se la'avira elam that after the baby is born will be yes and knuckle easier b'tfises the klitas ha-bchinas elu b'meicha v'libei lotzis mel melagil. Okay, let me explain this. It's very simple. There's a famous question all the Mefarshim ask. We know that the baby is taught the whole Torah, and then when it's born, the Malach comes, gives it a whack under the nose, he makes him forget it, and he says, now go learn it. Okay? So the obvious question is, so why teach it to him? If he forgets it, so what's the purpose of teaching it to him? So the answer is, because the fact that they teach it to him before the neshama comes into the, practical, physical, he's in the body, in the mother, but before he's born, so then he has the ability afterwards to be able to learn the whole Torah and do all mitzvahs. What ability does the person have to learn Hashem's wisdom? Because he's taught it b'memei. And now the Malach says, Hashem wants, go do it yourself. It's not a gift from above. You have to work on it. But the fact that you were already given that ability as a gift from above, that allows you, like we learned 1,000,000 times. What made the Jews say Nasiv and Ishma? Hashem revealed the mountain from on top of them. That revelation of Elokus gave the Jews the ability to say Nasiv and Ishma. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, one second. The Alter Rebbe is saying, though, what's the inyan of birth? Before birth, Ner Dolok HaReisha. The Ner of the Neshama, Torah, Chachma. Ner Mitzvah of Torah, the level of Bittul. And then they teach him Bina, the whole Torah, until the lowest Hey. That means all the levels. And that gives them the ability that when they're born, they have the ability to connect to Yudke Vavke. In Chachma and Bina, the 6 midas, Machshava Dibur HaMaisa, which is Malchus.
Nobody knows this, but every baby has the same zechut, equal.
Are they taught equally? It seems so. I don't know, I didn't see anywhere. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Just because I didn't see it doesn't mean anything. I've never seen anywhere that it says that there's a difference. Like a tzaddik is taught more, I don't know.
It says everything is taught. So
Huh?
everything is everything.
What do you mean everything?
If
A baby is taught Kol HaTorah Kula.
everything is everything.
Yeah, but the question is he taught at a deeper level? You can learn Kol HaTorah Kula, but you can keep going deeper, deeper, deeper. What?
The baby's taught the whole Torah.
Yeah. They tell stories. There are kids born, and as soon as they began talking, they started rattling off Torah. So they different stories. Some Rebbes they brought to and the Rebbe, because it's a problem kid, you should know. Very nice, but it's a problem kid. And it's not what Hashem wants. So they tell stories. One person, they came and the Rebbe, his Rebbe, whatever it was, gave him a whack under the nose and he forgot everything. I think what some said, I don't know. There's a story that some said, don't worry, he'll forget it anyway. He'll forget it. But that's the power of what gives us the koyach to learn Torah. Think about it. How can a physical brain learn Torah? The answer is a gift from above. Before Adam ki yakriv, there has to be vayikra el Moshe. We learned that 1,000,000 times. There has to be always a revelation from above that gives the Yid the ability to do what he needs to do. So the fact that ner dolok hareisha, it's not some, the Alter Rebbe is adding, it's not some, the Gemara says he's taught the whole Torah. There's an introduction to that. Ner dolok hareisha. The candle, that's the candle from above, a revelation of bittul, from chokhmah, from above, to be able to allow that to happen. Okay, so he says in Gimel, Acham and Razal, the Gemara says, Shebizman Agolos in Hashem Sholim. The name of Hashem is incomplete. By Yamolek, in Parshat B'Shalach, it says, Ki Yod al Case Yud Kei Muhammad, it doesn't say kisei. It says ki yod al case yudkei. So the Gemara says that it doesn't say kisei, it says case, with meaning missing an aleph. And it doesn't say yudkei vavkei, it says yudkei. So the Gemara says, as long as Amalek is alive, ein Hashem shalom, vein kisei shalom. The name of Hashem is incomplete. The chair of Hashem is incomplete, meaning the Malchus, the throne of Hashem is incomplete, as long as Amalek is around. So here the Alter Rebbe is saying, that means in the time of Golus, Yudkei Vavkei is not complete. So L'cheira, we're missing out the Hamshach into the Midas, and the Hamshach into Malchus, because it's only Yudkei. And he says, V'ainu sha'eis is Vavkei, that the letters Vavkei, the Mesis Yudke are separated from Yudke. Ideally, the Aveda of a Yid is to have Yudke Vavke, Chachma, Bina, Mides, Machshava Dibur Amaisa. But in Golus, there's only a revelation of Yudke. Yudke doesn't come into the Vavke. So what does it mean in Aveda? Sha'af or B'Shem is Bein, Umayim Megdus Hashem. Because even though he meditates into the greatness of Hashem, even if he has the level of bittul, nevertheless, in other words, like this, in the time of Golus, you could have fantastic meditation, you can have fantastic bittul, but it still doesn't work. It doesn't work, he says, it doesn't affect to have in the heart to transform the midas of Ava v'Yirah b'Izgalus le'Bish Shukal Hashem levadei, to transform it to Hashem. So l'cheira, why not? If the person has his baininess and he has the level of bittul, so why doesn't it come into Vavkei? He says, Ainu b'sibas ha'golus. That's the concept of golus. Shemalu b'shbetayves v'inyonim gashmin, a person is indulged in Gashmiistic Ketaivis, and that's why what's the Avedo, Maltem, Esarlis, Levavchem. In other words, like this, Yudkei is Seichel, the head. Midas, Machshava Dibur Amaisa, that's the level of the heart. The problem is, normally, Seichel, by nature, Seichel is Meilid Midas, right? Seichel stimulates feelings. What happens when you meditate and the midas are not turned on? It's not stimulated. The answer is because there's a blockage along the way. So you have sometimes it says Timtum Alev, Timtum Amayach, which means a blocked, in Yiddish it's much nicer. Verstoppte hearts and verstoppte Kopf. Meaning a blocked head and a blocked heart. You know, sometimes you explain something to somebody a million times, they just don't get it. You say he has a verstoppte Kopf, he has a blocked head, like it's stone. So he says, what happens when Yudke doesn't come into Vavke? Meaning, Seichel doesn't come into Midas. So then why is it? Because the heart is covered, and it's not allowing the Seichel to come. So you have to do a bris in the heart. Umaltemes or laslavavchem. What? No, I said the seichel stimulates midas. So what happens when seichel doesn't come into midas? You have proper meditation, you have proper bittul, even everything. Why doesn't it work? Because the world of galus, blocks seichel from coming into actually feeling and loving and fearing the locals.
So what's the purpose of the Shem Chud? What's the purpose of saying bracha? If you're not bringing it down.
So the Aveda is to bring it down.
But it says that in the Talmud you can't.
So, but that by nature you can't. So there's Aveda of doing a bris in galus.
Naturally, it can happen, but you have to decide.
Listen, tzarich lahavin the masher b'china zu yemeis Hashem levadi, because it says umaltem. In other words, like this: one pasuk says, Umol Hashem alokechos levavcha. Hashem will circumcise your heart. Another pasuk says, Umaltem es arlas levavchem. You guys should do the bris. Right? So the Alter Rebbe in Torah and the bris that they say, the Maimonides say the bris, you know. Betzemiyim as a nimal avram. So the Alter Rebbe, if you remember over there, talks about the milah from above and the milah from below. There's a level, Amal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha ves levav zarecha, that Hashem does the bris. And there's a level of Maltem Asal, that's our avodah. By the way, Amal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha, the es levav is Rosh Tevis Elul. So Elul is Taka Melech Basada. That means there's a gili from above. The king is coming into the field. He's revealed from above. The only thing is, you have to go out and meet the king. The king could be in the field, but if you're home doing nothing, nothing's going to happen. So there is the level of Umaltem Etzardas Lavav. But the bottom line, bottom line over here is, there's Yud K, normally it works, Chachma goes into Bina, into the 6 meters, into Malchus, Machshav Diva Ramaisa. But what happens if you work in Golos and it doesn't go? So Ein Hashem Sholem, it's only Yud K. Why doesn't Yud K come into Vav K? Because you have verstoppt the heart, verstoppt the cup. So yeah, it's blocked. You have to go rotor. But what's the aim? It's the aim of making a bris. Cutting off the foreskin, cutting off the covering of the heart or the brain or whatever it may be, to be able to allow the intellect of Yud K to come into Vav K.